what I want to do in this video is try to give a reasonable understanding of the different players involved that issue and process your credit cards. So let's start off with the processors. The processors. Sometimes you could say that the network, or the processors are the people that maintain the credit card networks. And the examples of those are Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover. And what they do is they essentially maintain networks of IT and policies that connect a bunch of banks together. But for just the sake of this video, we'll do very simple. So let's say that this is network 1. Maybe that's Visa. Maybe this right here is network 2. This right here could be MasterCard. And right now, the networks are just circles, but you'll see that they're networks as I build out this explanation. Now, let's say that I'm some bank out there. Let me call myself Bank A. Bank A. And I decide that, you know what, it would be good for my business for me to issue a credit card. I could extend credit to my customers. They'll pay me interest. Maybe I'll make some fees off of that, and it'll be a good business for my bank. So I go up to, let's say, Visa, and I say, hey, can I be a member of your network? Visa has some policies, and if you're, I guess, a legitimate bank and you agree to all those policies, you'll become a member of that network. So I've joined that network, and I'm, of course, not the only person on that network. There's tons of other banks on that network. So that could be Bank B. This could be Bank C. This could be Bank D. And of course, each of these are networks, so they all have their own member banks on them. That's MasterCard's network right there. And so in this situation, they'll come up to, let's say I'm a customer of Bank A. They say, you want a credit card? And I say, sure, that'll be convenient. I don't like carrying cash in my pocket. So give me a credit card. And they'll issue a credit card that looks something like this. The credit card, I think we've all seen credit cards. It'll say Bank A really big up at the top. Bank A. I'll have a credit card number that's unique to me. My credit card number, my name will be there, some kind of maybe an expiration date. And then here in the bottom right corner, they're going to say what network I'm a part of. In this case, it would be Visa. A credit card issuer over here would say MasterCard, or if it was American Express, they'd put American Express here, and maybe there's some type of a hologram. So great. I have a credit card here. And I think we all have a general sense. I could use it, and then I'll build a balance, and then in the future, I could pay off that balance to this bank, or I could carry a balance, and they'll charge me interest, which is usually reasonably high interest, so I want to pay it off fairly quickly. But how does this actually work in the context of a network? So let's say I go to the local grocery store. Let me draw that in orange. So let's say I go to some grocery store over here. I'll say G for grocery, and I buy $100 worth of groceries. And I want to pay with my newly issued credit card. Let me write this down. This is the issuer. This is the issuing bank. I go to the grocery store. I say, hey, I'd like to pay with a credit card. The grocery store, if they accept credit cards, they need to have some relationship with another bank someplace on this Visa network in order for them to accept a Visa card. So let's say that they have a relationship with Bank B over here. This would be the merchant bank, or we could say the retailer's bank. Or it's often in credit card lingo called the acquiring bank, or the acquirer. And you might wonder, why is it called the acquirer? It's called the acquirer because this is the player that goes out and goes to each of the merchants and says, hey, right now you only accept cash, or you only accept American Express. Wouldn't it be great if you also accepted Visa or MasterCard? That way you'll have a more appeal to more customers, and every time, and it'll be more convenient for your customers, and every time a transaction happens, we'll just take a little bit of a cut of that transaction. And so they go out and acquire different retailers. This was the grocer. Maybe Bank B goes off and acquires the shoemaker. Maybe he goes and he gets the, I don't know, gets the tailor on the network. These are all different retailers who will now all of a sudden accept Visa because their bank, their merchant bank, is a member of the Visa network. Likewise, it could have been a member of the MasterCard network. It doesn't matter. This is the processor, and this is their network. Now, this guy would, in this context, he would accept Visa. So I would give him my Visa card. And the first process is called authorization. 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 And that's literally to check whether I'm good for the money, whether this card is valid to buy $100 worth of, say, groceries. So when I swipe the card, or when the grocer swipes the card, it's going to send a message from that little unit, from that point of sale unit, to the acquiring bank. That's going to be forwarded to Visa. Then Visa will say, oh, that's Bank A's card, and it'll give the number to Bank A on their own proprietary network. Then Bank A will look into their database and says, oh, yeah, Sal's got $1,000 of credit. He hasn't used any of it. He is good for it. I authorize the transaction. That message goes back through the network to Bank B, and so then we get authorized. And then the transaction goes forward, and eventually, as you could imagine, you can't just authorize the transaction and then I walk away with the groceries. At some point, this guy here expects to get his money back for giving me the groceries. He expects to get $100 back. And that $100 is going to come from Bank A. But he's not going to get a complete $100 because obviously each of these players, they're providing a service. This guy, he's plugged into the network and he's offering credit. So he's offering credit. He's offering credit. The network operator, or the processor, is offering their network. And there's other I guess, services they might provide, different security mechanisms. If they say, hey, Sal lives in Chicago, but all of a sudden he's buying $100 worth of groceries in Salzburg or someplace that would seems unlikely, then it might send some type of a warning trigger. So people might have their own security mechanisms. But they're all providing a service. This guy is going out there. He might be providing the actual point of sale terminals, the actual network. So they're all going to get a little bit of a cut of things. And so out of the $100, so I got $100 worth of groceries. $100 worth of groceries. There'll be a 2%, and it's not always 2%. I'm just that's a round number. But it also is a ballpark, not completely outlandish relative to what tends to be the case. So of that $100, that this guy, I guess, could have gotten for his groceries, he has to pay a 2%. He's got to pay, well, yeah, let's write it that way. He's got to pay a 2%, or in this case, $2. That's 2% of $100. He's got to pay a $2 discount rate to his acquiring bank, to acquirer. And you might say, gee, the acquirer, that's great. They got $2 they get 2% of all of these guys' transactions. But of course, they're going to have to share it with these other people up here. And actually, the bulk of it ends up with Bank A. So of this $2, and I'm doing it in roundabout numbers, Bank A, so now we're going to split up the $2. Bank A is going to get, let's just say, $1.70. And these aren't that far off from what the real numbers might be. And they change, and they depend on the banks and the network and all of that. And the networks might change their rates. $1.70 goes to Bank A. So the issuing bank, besides now, now that I have a credit balance, it'll be able to charge interest on it. It also got $1.70 for that transaction. That $1.70 of the $2, this is called an interchange fee. This right here is an interchange fee. Interchange fee. And it generally gets set by the individual networks, although the networks don't share in that interchange fee. They just say our standard interchange fee is X% of transactions plus, I don't know, 10 cents, and that's what Bank B is going to pay to Bank A. So it's essentially Bank A's cut of the discount rate of the $2 this guy is charging that guy. And then the network, they make their money in several ways, but in general, they make money off of every transaction as well. So in this situation, they make roughly about 1/1000th of the transaction, or 0.1%. So in this example, 10 cents of this discount rate that this guy charged would go to the processor. Would go to the processor, or the network. So every time you transact, the processor gets a small fraction of your actual purchase. And then this guy will be left with 30, well, let's see, $1.70, 10 cents, $1.80. We're coming from $2. This guy's going to be left with 20 cents. So when the whole transaction gets settled, which essentially means everyone gets the money they need to get, this bank is going to send Visa's settlement bank $100 minus the $1.70 that it gets to keep as part of its interchange fee. So he's going to send Visa, what is that? That's $98.30 to Visa. Visa will keep 10 cents of it, send it to the acquirer. So the acquirer is going to get $98.20. And then the acquirer is going to keep 20 cents for itself and give the retailer $98. So my numbers aren't exact, but I want to give you the general idea of how all this works. So in order for this retailer to be able to use all of this infrastructure out there, he essentially had to pay 2% of the actual transaction. That's always not going to be 2%, but it gives you a nice round figure. So this guy benefits because he gets access to a network. It's convenient for the customers. This guy obviously is getting some type of fee. The more retailers he signs on, or the more retailers he acquires, the more cuts of transactions he's going to make. Visa makes a small cut on many, 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 many transactions. So that's where they make their money. And they obviously have to use some of that money to support all of this infrastructure. And then Bank A is going to make that interchange fee, which was the bulk of really that discount rate, that retailer discount rate, not related at all to the federal funds discount rate. And then, of course, they extended credit to me. So that $100 might not be paid immediately. They might be able to charge me 15, 20% annualized, an annualized percentage rate interest on that money until I pay it off. And of course, I have some type of minimum balances to pay. So hopefully that explains things a little bit. I'll see you in the next video.